are calling to order the regular city council meeting for Monday, December 5th, 2022. If everyone can please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Edwards.
Here.
Hatsapatinos.
Ms. Hespatinos is excused.
Houston.
Here.
Kozak.
Here.
Pansera.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
President Keeler.
Here.
Mayor Kearns.
Here.
Director Dvorsky.
Here.
City Attorney Kuzan.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
All are present except for Hatsapatinos.
Thank you. Moving on, we have approval of proceedings. We have one edit. Some words were switched around in the November 21st special council meeting on page 4. The paragraph that starts out with Councilmember Kozak asked, fourth line from the bottom, it should say, you can say it was part-time, but it wasn't the responsibility that was part-time, it was the salary that was part-time. So salary and responsibility were switched. Just want to make sure that was edited. Are there any other amendments? Are there any motions, discussion?
Move to approve of the amendment as you stated.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
That's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Proceedings have been approved. Next we have a mayoral appointment.
Thank you, Madam President. There's a Parks and Facilities Advisory Board position for a designee for this Village of Marble Cliff as they share our Parks District. The mayor has recommended, and I'm bringing forward to you that Joanne Taylor, who's a council member and has served for one term, be reappointed.
She's not a council member.
She's a council member in Marble Cliff.
Oh, Marble Cliff, sorry. Okay. That went in and out.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Move to confirm the appointment.
That's a motion to confirm. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you and congratulations for the new board member. Next, we have comments from visitors. We received one online today. It was from Mr. Sean Dorsey of 1171 Virginia Avenue, and the subject of his comments was the 2023 budget and police funding. And we will attach those to the minutes. Everyone on council should have received those. If you haven't, please let me know. I'll make sure that they are forwarded. I have no other forms for anyone in the audience. So we will move on to department head reports. All right. Please come forward. Oh, no, department head report.
You can do it. All right. Hopefully you all had a chance to read the November report. A couple things I wanted to add to that kind of been occurring and to occur since I wrote this. Tomorrow evening, Holiday in the Heights on Gravy Avenue, starting skating at 3 p.m. and the other event features start at 5 p.m. So hopefully you all get a chance to come up and celebrate the holiday with the rest of the community. Hopefully Mother Nature cooperates, fingers crossed. One feature that I did want to highlight, we've been working with Nationwide Children's Hospital and their Light Up the Lawn, Light Up the Life program. They are a program in which donations light up 6-foot wide, 40-pound butterflies on the lawn at Nationwide Children's Hospital. We are one of 6 sites they are traveling to with one of these butterflies, so individuals can make donations on site tomorrow evening. So very cool program to be a part of and support. Had some very productive meetings with Myers & Associates regarding the new facility down at McKinley Field. Parks and Facility Advisory Board, staff, and we started small focus groups with Grandview Center members, variety of parents and active users of park programs, and some community partners like the school and the library. So got some very productive, positive feedback, very exciting project, and looking forward to it. So with that, that's kind of the highlights for Parks and Recreation.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mayor Kearns, would you like to add to that?
Director, what time's the tree lighting?
Kicks off at 5. Tree lighting roughly 5:35, 45-ish.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Santa will be there?
Santa will be there.
Reindeer?
Reindeer will be there.
Grinch.
Ice cream?
Grinch isn't confirmed yet.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Any other questions? No. Thank you very much, Director Patterson. We appreciate you giving us your update. So you are excused unless you would like to stay.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Next, we would like to call up Dr. Robert Crane from the Coalition to End Tobacco Targeting, and Amanda Turner, Executive Director of the Preventing Tobacco Addiction Foundation. If you would like to come forward for your presentation, please.
Ready now?
Right now. Yes.
Cool. So I can press the correct thing over here and make it go forward. We're going to find it. Right, think that good? Good, thank you. I'm Rob Crane. I've been to Grandview Council, 6 or 8 times? I don't know.
20 years.
Councilmember Panzera, the phone says, "What now?" Thank you very much. I want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing in Columbus, and we're going to go forward. But first, I want to congratulate you on the singular accomplishment of passing this bond issue without exception, without rejection. It is, in this day and age, an amazing thing to have done. My daughter lives in Granville. They rejected the replacement school levy. What you did is amazing. Anyway, the first thing I'm going to do is take us back in time a little bit. Rocky and Bullwinkle, of course, some of you are too young to remember this, but they had an amazing machine that would actually warp you back in time called the Wayback Machine. In this case, they were taking it back to the ride of Paul Revere, 1775, where Mr. Peabody had advice for Paul about how to conduct his ride. I'm not going to go back that far, but I'm going back to Grandview in 2004. At that time, you had a very controversial request from us and others about taking all of Grandview and Columbus and surrounding suburbs smoke-free. No smoking in all workplaces or bars or restaurants. I'm telling you, this was a heavy political lift. You're getting a lot of calls, a lot of discussion, and a lot of complaint. But we looked at the science, looked at what it meant for people who worked in these places, at the toxicity of secondhand smoke, and you stood firm. And you voted 7-0 to join Columbus and 12 surrounding suburbs, take all of this area smoke-free. And 2 years later, the entire state voted overwhelmingly, despite $5 million spent by RJR to stop this, to make the entire state smoke-free, with the very same legislation that you wrote in 2004. Forward to 2016, I was back with the whole group again to ask you to consider the problem we're facing with so many kids who are vaping. All of your kids, all the kids around Columbus, Ohio, and the nation. And we asked, could you please consider raising the age from 18 to 21 for this deadly addictive product? Again, the vape stores, the convenience stores, you only have 2 of them, but they were still saying, we'll go out of business. We can't do this. You stood firm, you looked at the science, you listened to the physicians and nurses and everybody else who was talking to you about this, and you passed the legislation. And again, 2 years later, the entire state went to 21. A year after that, the entire nation went to 21. Again, the funny thing is the legislation you wrote back then is a legislation that spread throughout the entire Midwest. So now, Amanda Turner, who is the executive director of the Preventing Tobacco Addiction Foundation, is working in Columbus, that is 825 tobacco retailers as opposed to your 2, and getting it to vote pretty soon on what we should be doing in Columbus. And Amanda's going to talk about that.
Hi. So I'm the show and tell portion of the evening, and I'm going to pass this around. What you have in front of you are flavored e-cigarettes as well as flavored cigarillos, and I'll talk through these products. But smell them, feel them, don't use them. I'm assuming this is a smoke-free building. I am here as the executive director of the Preventing Tobacco Addiction Foundation and Tobacco 21, but more importantly, my most important role is I am a mom. I live in Clintonville, in Franklin County. I'm also the granddaughter of a tobacco farmer in South Carolina who passed away when I was 10 years old of lung cancer. Back then it was un-American to not smoke if you lived in that area, but unfortunately he passed away early in my childhood. So it's safe to say I've always really disliked tobacco, but as a mom, I fear it. I fear it because this industry is very innovative. They are coming up with, there's lots of barriers that have been put in front of them, laws have been in front of them, but they always innovate a new product to get new users. And the products you have in front of you are some of the examples of the products that we want to talk about today. So what we know in Ohio, that 30% of high schoolers have tried e-cigarettes. 30% use e-cigarettes, 50% high schoolers have tried e-cigarettes. The number that's really shocking is that 12% of middle schoolers, so 6th, 7th, 8th graders, use e-cigarettes. Those are the devices in front of you. And I just want to give a more of an understanding of what these products are, and it's not advancing. There we go. So this is a pack of menthol cigarettes. This is 20 cigarettes. This is about 200 puffs worth of nicotine. So as you puff it and smoke it. This product here, just similar to the ones you have, is called a Breezy Bar. It advertises itself as 6,000 puffs worth of nicotine. I can hide it in my hand, I can put it in my pocket. This is lemon mint. So if I'm doing my math correctly, this little device is equivalent to 30 of these in nicotine content. This is 5% nicotine. What bothered me the most is I purchased this from a gas station from down the street of my house. They gave me a free gift with purchase, and this is 6% nicotine. So they gave me a product with more nicotine to make sure I stay addicted, right? This is marketing. This is not because they get a surplus. This is the marketing that tobacco companies do. They spend $8.5 billion a year on their marketing, 95% is point of sale, and it's things like this. Again, it's an innovative industry. So 81% of kids who have ever tried tobacco products started with a flavored product. Again, smell it. It doesn't smell like cigarettes. It doesn't smell like the tobacco we grew up in. And so this is an example of what I saw. This is just one store. It's the whole bottom part of the checkout. So when I grew up, that's where candy used to be. We all know when you go to the grocery store, they have candy, sweet flavored things at the level of kids. They're doing the same things with these products. If my son was with me, he would ask me, what are these items? Because the images on the front are fruit, candy, colorful, fun-looking things. And all those items in those pictures, those are all individual e-cigarette products. And even when I was buying them, I was asking the clerk, what's popular? He goes, there's so many options. I go, there are. Because there are 15,500 unique e-cigarette flavors. And I could probably name like 100 right now, and they'd be some sort of combination of strawberry. And there are more than 250 unique cigar flavors. So those are the things that you have in the packaging. Those are essentially cigarettes. Back in 2009, they ended the sale of flavored cigarettes, because you used to be able to buy them in like cherry and chocolate, but they kept menthol on the market, which are these products. This is a flavor. That was the loophole that the tobacco industry figured out. They just wrapped it in a tobacco leaf, and then they could call it a cigarillo, a mini cigar. But that's essentially a cigarette that you can buy. Here's another image of those. So ultimately, we just want to make sure you understand that what's happening here is that flavors are setting the hook, and the nicotine is reeling them in. And we just ask that you don't allow poison to taste like peaches and really consider talking to your families and to your schools about these products.
Thanks, Amanda. So I just have one kind of factual slide, two actually, to talk about the data going forward. First of all, what we've accomplished over the last 20 years. You can see that through education, higher taxes, counter-marketing, and a very persuasive set of circumstances. We've convinced kids that smoking cigarettes is gross and stupid. It worked. What we've done is worked. We got to the demand side and persuaded them. But we faced this very innovative industry. We talked about in 2016, they're still there, and this is what they've done in the last 20 years. They've essentially wiped out 20 years of our slow decreases with 6 years of increases in e-cigarette use. We know the kids who start with e-cigarettes are about 4 times more likely to go on to regular cigarettes. E-cigarettes have a lot of nicotine in them, but it comes somewhat more slowly, over about a minute or so. Because the particles are larger, they go to the upper part of the lungs. Marlboro or Newport, that's heroin. That's the good stuff. 6 seconds, smaller particles, the deep part of the lung. Like OxyContin, kids may start with e-cigarettes, but eventually if they addict, they'll go to the stronger, faster, more persuasive addiction. So that's what we're facing. Now, one answer has been to raise the age, and that helps some. Drops uses by about 30%. That's since 2019 nationally. But it's not been enough. We have to work on the demand side as well. So this is what Columbus has been considering. We've been working with them for the last year or so. Retailers would not be able to sell flavored cigarettes. It's demand side. Still sell hookah and cigarettes and cigars and e-cigarettes. They just would have to take out the candy flavors that entice our kids. Most importantly, there would be no ban on possession. We don't want policemen stopping kids in the street and trying to get their cigarette. We don't want that at all. This is purely done by the health department. In your case, Franklin County Health would only have an effect on licensing retailers and making sure they didn't sell in the shops. There'd be no expense to you whatsoever. There'd be tobacco retail license that you would authorize Franklin County Health to collect, and they would use that licensing money to enforce. And again, you have 2 retailers. But collectively, we have to act together. And I'll show you this little quick thing. This is who's on board with this. If you look at the array of folks who are all back in this initiative, you see there's virtually nobody in Central Ohio who's not signed on. If you look nationally, virtually every health and education consortium has signed on as well because they know flavors are so important to starting with kids. Here's the problem if we do not act collectively. This is from about a month and a half ago when we gave a presentation at Columbus City Council. There was a reporter there, and she quickly discovered this. Oops. Oh, you can read it.
Goes into effect in Columbus, you'll still be able to buy the products they want right here. And that's why small business owners in Columbus are concerned. They say that there'll still be a health crisis in Columbus because people will just cross the city limits to get the products they want. So I brought that question and concern today to city leaders.
When in fact, Central Ohio has always acted together on health issues. One of the beauties here, you realize this has never been done on any city outside the coast. Same thing was true for smoke-free 18 years ago. Tobacco to 21 in 2016. We were the first region to do this, and it spread quickly. I had the initiative to be in, look at an Iowa rendition of Tobacco 21. And I noticed that this funny language we put in for one of the whereases was the language that we'd written and went to Iowa. Your leadership is what this is about. So we're asking of you not to do anything tonight, but to listen to the folks who matter to you. Principals, school teachers, parents, kids themselves. They'll tell you what's going on. We were just in Gehanna, and they've had to install vape detectors in all the bathrooms in all their schools from elementary on up. I mean, it's insane. We hope you do the same listening. I'm ready for any questions if you might have them.
Sorry, Councilmember Smith.
Speak up because I'm hard of hearing, obviously.
So, you're asking, pass legislation to ban these the vaping and the flavored, but, we passed tobacco 21 and it's spread and everything. So there's a big problem with kids using this. I mean, it sounds like it's a problem of underage kids being able to purchase these products, as opposed to actually, I don't know if the answer is to ban them all in stores, but there should be a crackdown in, just like, selling alcohol to underage kids or regular cigarettes.
So we believe in the
what we
supply
ban.
side crackdown as well. I mean, right now, there's no enforcement here in Grandview or throughout the state.
That seems to be the problem then.
It's a big problem. We wish we were stronger, and Columbus is going to act to be more assertive there. But it's a challenge when you have that many retailers, especially, to do this. Franklin County, of course, has many retailers to deal with. And you'll have to authorize Franklin County Health through this proposed ordinance to do something. Right now, they have no authority. But yeah, we think it's both. But we realize the demand side has got to be dealt with. That kids' desire to get stuff has got to be reduced. And that's by taking away the candy. But I understand your concern. Good question.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I guess a follow-up to that point, is there data around, I realize this is probably harder to measure, but the proportion that are kids, proportion of kids versus proportion of adults using the flavored products?
Go ahead.
Well, what we know in Ohio is they looked at the tax income, because they think there's this argument of like, well, adults are just switching over, that from cigarettes to e-cigarettes. There was a decrease in the tax revenue for cigarette sales by like 2%. Don't quote me on this, I'll have to get you the actual data because I'm just remembering a slide I saw recently. But the increase in that same time period was like 30% for e-cigarettes. Mm-hmm. So if it is something that people are switching to, you would think that would be an equal thing. Mm-hmm. But what we're seeing is new users. But in Ohio, we do have data that says 30% of high school students are using e-cigarettes and 12% of middle schoolers are using e-cigarettes. Again, it's an item that was created to attract new users, specifically kids. This is not for the 65-year-old Marlboro smoker trying to kick their habit. They may enjoy it, but they're probably doing it supplement.
Yeah.
It's hard to go back from heroin to Toxicon.
Yeah. But to your point earlier, this would be part of the licensing program as well. In Columbus, they have 820 tobacco retailers. Over 30% of them are not being compliant, so they're looking to crack down on that compliance as well. But it's the access is still there. If you're 21 and you're in college and you have an 18-year-old friend, you can easily purchase it and pass it on. But it's about removing the products that we know are luring in the kids.
Just did a study at the Lantern, Ohio State's student newspaper, did a study of their student body. 69% had fake IDs underage. So this attempt to keep it out of the hands of kids by virtue of a sales restriction is only partially successful when you have that level of youth use of fake ID.
Unfortunately, there's just a lot of misinformation about these products. We talk about this all the time, and I think half the time I talk to people, oh, that has nicotine. I'm like, yes. They just think it's flavored vapes, vaporizing, you know, something you enjoy. It has nicotine, it has poison in it to hook you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pinzero?
Well, I have a number of questions. I think it would be really important as a starting point to understand the actual draft legislation that's being considered, so qualify or satisfy a lot of questions and curiosities that I think my colleagues would have. And you're actively pursuing this effort in a collaborative way, very similar to the way that we did in 2004. Are there, and be honest, are there any municipalities that have expressed a great deal of resistance to this in Franklin County?
The only ones that haven't been engaged have been Canal Winchester, and Grove City, and Groveport. But the rest of the cities in Franklin County are actively having conversations about this. Tomorrow we'll have a first reading of Bexley for a comprehensive flavor ban. We're also going to Westerville right after that. Reynoldsburg is going through the process as we speak. I think they're on their second reading. Beyond those 3 cities, we have been engaged in all the cities in Franklin County. So,
We expect Columbus will pass a week from today.
yeah,
Subject to
Everything. But
yeah.
if it does, I think that will stimulate the conversation even further. We already had a number of conversations, including a long conversation with COMA, Central Ohio Managers and Mayors Association, and they seem very receptive.
I attended the meeting the month after that, and it seemed that all the suburban communities, other than what you
Yeah.
mentioned, were looking to pass this in the next 6 months to a year.
And again, should this pass, it's just the flavored product, so tobacco flavored e-cigarettes will still be in the market, as well as Marlboros, like the regular cigarettes that don't have the additive flavors like the menthol does, that makes it cooler, easier to smoke. And unfortunately, you know, you can still get these online. We can't regulate that from the local level. So an adult who has chosen to use these products instead of smoking, they can still get them online.
Thank you. It would be great if you could share some sample legislation.
Sure, yeah, we have a model sample we can definitely email.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Are there any other questions for our guests?
Just a small dose of clarity. In that 20 years ago, when we worked together to start the Smoke-Free Ohio, I actually wanted to start with the form of a resolution. And I reached out to a little organization called the Better Breathing Club. I don't know if it still exists. And I spoke with a contact there, and she said, you know, I think you might want to call this gentleman, Dr. Robert Crane, because he's actually working on something that's real similar to this. And it was before any of it had been, you know, in the open discussion at all. And from that, I learned that there was actually an opportunity to pursue this in the form of an ordinance rather than a resolution, just in, you know, kind of supportive measure. And I don't think it passed unanimously.
Oh, we don't think so, it was
I
6-1?
don't think it passed unanimously. There was a lot of conflict with a couple members of council during that time that were not pleased with this. And then, of course, we suffered the referendum with, I think it only takes 60-some people to get on the ballot. So we passed it. Everyone else passed it, but we couldn't enforce it for almost a full year. That was actually longer than it was about a year. And during that year, everyone in Central Ohio came to Grandview Heights to smoke in the bars and restaurants. So it created the exact opposite effect for that year. We were inundated, and we couldn't do anything about it because it was subject to the public vote. When it did go to vote, I was in the 80th percentile of passing. And I thank you again for your dedication to this cause and for all the improvements that you've made for public health for all of us.
Good, thank you for inviting us.
Last thing I'll say, because we have a friend that's in the environmental space, the devices you have are disposable. These are the new cigarette butts of college campuses. We actually heard reports in one town where they were having plumbing issues at schools because kids are flushing them down the toilets. But those are all reusable devices that I showed you, so kids will use that for a week. and toss it and go get a new one.
Disposable, not
Disposable.
Disposable.
Not reusable, they're disposable, yeah, excuse me. Yeah.
I do want to know what, is this dance floor here for this team?
I know.
It's chair volleyball.
Yes.
Foursquare maybe, or this
Yeah.
is early pickleball.
Pickleball, yeah.
It's chair volleyball.
Thank you so much, guys.
Very
Thank
good,
you.
thank you so much for coming this evening. We enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, we have council committee reports, finance.
Finance met at 5 PM this evening, and I can go over the legislation that was discussed that comes up on the agenda.
Thank you. Administration, Councilmember Edwards, would you like to speak on?
Similarly, planning administration met at previous to this at 6 o'clock, and we can discuss as they come up on the agenda.
Thank you. Recreation services and public facilities,
No meeting, no report.
safety,
No meeting, no report.
ad hoc economic development.
Economic development met at 6:30 tonight. We discussed TIF districts that will be on the agenda. We can discuss those as they come up.
Thank you. And the ad hoc aggregation exploration director report.
Yes, we had a second meeting on that earlier this month, and more to come down the road.
Thank you. Council liaison reports, Grandview Library.
Today, the library's hours changed. They're now open at 9 in the morning instead of 10 on Monday through Thursday, but they're closing a half hour earlier, so they'll be closing at 8, Monday through Thursday. And they have the Guard Tower Game Store at 3600 Treeview Road donated over 20 new board games, and those can be checked out at the library. The Grandview gift box is now available to support the Library Foundation, and it includes treats from Prima, Pure Imagination, Stoffs, and the Historical Society. And you can get your Grandview Civic Welfare luminaries on the next 2 weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And there will be a New Year's Eve photo booth with costumes and props on Saturday, December 31st from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Thanks.
Thank you. Next we have the school. Lovely break. Now we're back. Extra long break and then grand reopening of the high school. So that will be exciting. Next we have the chamber.
The chamber will have their holiday celebration December 15th at 11:30 at the Scioto Country Club. That's it.
Thank you. Planning commission.
There were, to my knowledge, there were no applications, and no meeting was held for planning commission in November.
Thank you. CODA.
Code Advisory Board met last Tuesday, 29, for their the last meeting of the year. Some of the highlights, there are some bus routes that will contract a little more. Nothing that directly affects Grandview. The 75, which goes through the city to downtown, one change with that, and then starting in January, there'll be where it ends in the morning and when the first pickup in the evening, that will now be outside, like around High and Main, rather than that terminal building. They continue to work with the Link Us program, particularly the Northwest Corridor. There was an article about that in the paper last Monday, and the Director Colker's been meeting with CODA regarding that. That's proceeding. One thing Council President Keeler asked about a couple times was the sales tax levy. They're kind of doing wait and see on that. They'd like to get it on the ballot in the next within one of the next 3 election cycles. They've got like a political arm that's kind of feeling it out with the voters to see when the best time to put that on the ballot would be. It's still up in the air. As the article said last Monday, that the Link Us program is going to be very, very difficult to do without that. The ridership is is up a little bit, still down from 2019, primarily with a lot of the work from home, but it's picking up a little bit. They've had trouble getting, recruiting and retaining bus drivers. They've had a lot of applications the past few months. It sounds like about 150 qualified applicants in the past 3 months. But they've been very slow in hiring. There's been about an average of 4 being hired each month, so that's the challenge. But they are getting a lot of applicants for bus drivers. So that's pretty much the year-end summary.
Thank you. Moving on, Morpsey, no updates. Destination Grandview, Ms. Estatinos is not here this evening. Sustainable 2050.
Yes, a few things. The Clean Ohio applications are something maybe to take a look at or be aware of the administration. I don't know that we've ever been able to apply for those, but they are available for local governments. Those are due March 10th, 2023. The application for Morpsey's technical assistance program is also now open. That's only open through this Friday, though. Morpsey is also teaming up with OSU City and Regional Planning and OSU Sustainability Institute to accept proposals from Sustainable 2050 members. And that's to work with the OSU studios and capstones to complete a project. And I guess I don't have a deadline for that one, but those are some kind of timely opportunities. And then the next Sustainable 2050 meeting is this Friday morning at the Morpsey offices. And I'm hoping to attend, though I do have a conflict I need to sort out. So I'm gonna try. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kearns, Mayor's report.
Well, as mentioned, we overwhelmingly, the voters supported issue 32. We are very grateful for the community support. I'm also very grateful for the staff support to help get out information. This was, there was a lot of information to put out, and it was a complex master plan to understand. So we've solved our large issue, and I guess I can't say enough about how positive this is for the future of the city. Leaf pickup ending Friday. Let's see, police department survey will be coming out this week. As you recall, we're switching off police 1 year, fire another year. And Holiday in the Heights is a rain or shine event, and on the Destination Grandview topic, I want to thank them for working with business community to help promote this event.
Thank you. Director of Operations, Director Dvorsky.
Got a lot of activity, of course, on the building, very, very timely and very productive, I felt. To highlight some things in the building department, we just hired a new building inspector. Jill Kipp started with us last week. So we have 2 new building inspectors, a change in leadership. We have the Rail Restaurant is nearing completion. The AEP storage building's been approved for temporary occupancy. The Goodale South Tri-W building is very close to completion. All the residential units have been cleared for final occupancy in the first floor. They're working on the final punch list. The municipal building had a rough month. It was on a rainy day. It was raining in my office again. It damaged my keyboard, but fortunately not my desktop or screen. However, the building also did have, in the IT area, we had an electrical outage that affected the server room and the phone system. So we had a good amount of downtime this month. And basically, we've had several technicians and repair workers throughout the building. So very grateful for residents approving the new building. It came from more time to finish. And then the final thing is the service department has worked with Columbus to remedy an issue affecting the operation of the interconnect system between Columbus and Grandview traffic signals, and they're pleased to report now that along the Goodale Boulevard corridor is working as intended. So that's all.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the director?
Are all the offices equipped with tarps and raincoats now for the next 2 years?
Pretty much.
All right, next, Director of Finance, Director Miller. Busy time of the year for you.
Yes, I talked a lot already tonight. The big thing in my November report is the mayor, council president, and I met with bond council and with our municipal advisor on November 18th to discuss the post-election steps relating to the bond issue. We're planning to move forward and probably issue bonds in February. So we will get those proceeds and we'll be moving right along. I plan to have Brian Cooper in for a finance committee meeting in January just to kind of update everybody on this is what's going to happen and this is how it works.
Okay. Do you have any questions for the director? Moving on, Director of Planning and Community Development. Another busy month.
Another busy
Well,
month.
It's so busy.
Yes, a very fun month, actually. Just a few highlights. I think you've all heard by now that we do have funding secured for the First Avenue upgrades between Grandview Avenue and Virginia. So we'll be starting to do some community outreach early in 2023 about that project. The new Fire EMS Police and Administrative Services building, there's lots and lots going on. The mayor has convened, I think one of the things you might be curious about, mayor has convened a design advisory group as we begin to get into design on that building, composed of folks in the community that have particular design expertise, people who are in either architecture or landscape architecture. So they have been engaged in providing some goal setting for the building. And design, preliminary design is in process now. We're also engaging with the team around sustainability. Just had another meeting using a LEED checklist, but as we mentioned before, not registering with LEED to help guide the development of the project. Some of those requirements will be included in the RFP going out to the CMARs tomorrow, the 3 shortlisted CMARs, to give them a sense of what they'll be obligated to do. Those shortlisted CMRs will be getting as I mentioned, the RFP tomorrow, which is requesting price proposals for them. So it's essentially the cost of the work plus a fee, sort of the format of it. So we'll be getting information on their fee proposals in early January and having interviews with them middle of January, aiming to have a contract ready to enter into early in February. So you'll start to see some legislation around that early next year. The Parks building also is underway, and we've also begun having some meetings with folks who are interested in that building as well. So people who are center members, people who are frequent users of the Parks and Recreation programming, as well as current staff members have been meeting with the design team there, Myers and Associates, to offer them some input as to what matters to everyone in the facility. One of the topics that's come up is renaming the facility to be something that's more descriptive of what its future might be. So we haven't really gotten too far on that, but it's sort of recurring themes beginning to show its head. Next round of meetings for that is next week, and we do anticipate also there are some very early kind of massing design concepts. On the regional level, there are things continuing to be afoot. As we mentioned, met with MORPC about their regular service and opportunities for augmentation given changes in the city. There's a meeting on the North Knot, the Olentangy Kinnear Herrick Knot, this Thursday, actually. Our city engineer is attending alongside me, as well as folks from Upper Arlington, Clinton Township, and City of Columbus, Franklin County engineer, to start to think about how that can all get sorted out and what that might impact. So those are some of the fun things that are going on.
Do you have any questions?
I may have missed it, but January 23rd is at least tentatively, we've invited the Irving McHenry group to do a public presentation here right before council, so at the 6 p.m. time frame. We'll send you all an invitation, but kind of wanted to give you an idea of when to expect that.
Clarifying question?
Yes.
When you refer to a knot, can you say more about that? Furthering that understanding?
How the roads don't really, come
That's how I
together,
understood it, it's like a
come
tangle
together
of
in a
traffic.
logical way.
Yeah,
What's
got
that?
it. A tangle of traffic.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is 315 and all those intersections.
I don't think I've
Yeah,
ever.
where you go
heard
under
it used.
Down here.
Just making sure I understood and heard that correctly.
I think it's now
What's that?
known as a hair.
Okay.
All right, next we have city attorney report.
I submitted my report and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, any questions? Moving on, old business item number 1.
Ordinance 2022-11, an ordinance to authorize the city of Grandview Heights to establish an opt-out governmental electric aggregation program for residential and non-mercantile consumers located within the incorporated areas of the city of Grandview Heights, to direct the Franklin County Board of Elections to submit the ballot question to the city's electors on the November 8, 2022 ballot and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Councilmember Panzera and Director Dvorsky as chairs. How is that going to go? For the aggregation exploration egg.
No, I would defer to a chair.
Either.
Well, we had met on it, and we talked about, some of the implications of, and approaches, and thought that would be achievable.
Thank you. Was there a recommendation from the committee?
There seemed to be support for doing that, yes.
I would phrase it the same. I don't think there was an explicit action. Do you recall?
There wasn't a recommendation
Okay.
for a specific, timeframe or movement. There was discussion about challenges and with May.
What election date?
Yeah, so what I would propose, and we can discuss it here if folks want to, would be to table to January 9th. And reason being is that I think by January 9th, we would know whether there might be a statewide ballot issue. There's an unfortunate attempt to have, unfortunate is my language, to have a statewide ballot issue concerning constitutional amendments to raise folks have been following this in the news, to raise the threshold to a 60% majority instead of a 50% majority. It is thought, and among folks who are working on that issue, some of my colleagues at the Environmental Council, that actually will go forward in lame duck, and that they would put it on the May ballot. So while that's unfortunate, it would create an opportunity where we wouldn't have to pay for that election, which is one of the big concerns I think that we heard from the administration and from folks in the committee. And so I think that by bumping this, tabling it to January 9th, we'll know at that time, is my sense, whether or not we would have a May primary that we would not need to finance with city resources. So that would be my kind of proposal for folks to consider.
Good question.
Yes,
That last committee meeting, Director Cruz, we briefly discussed, like, I don't think it was clear, was it definitive if that's the only issue that's on the ballot, the aggregation in the city initiative, the city would have to pay, would bear the cost.
Right.
However, but if, say, this initiative, she was talking. Okay.
That's not my understanding, Director Kazan, that we would share in the cost. If there's a statewide ballot issue, I don't believe we would share the cost.
I think we still incur some costs because the machine, excellent word machines come here. I don't have precise information. We were given information by the county Board of Elections that it could be as low as 5,000 and as high as 32,000.
What if there were other,
Right, that's what would drive it, is how many municipalities would share. So if there's a county measure, if there's a state measure, each person who's got some kind of a measure on would share in that cost.
potentially some contested
judicial.
Judicial,
Exactly.
okay.
So do we typically pay some portion of elections? Okay, so
We
that's not
always pay.
atypical then for
For
normal.
some, but
Okay.
we're typically on the lower end because it's
Right.
like, one of a number of statewide
I
things.
hear you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I had placed a call at Board of Elections too and had a brief conversation with someone in that division. And
You
we
would
took,
talk to Jeff Mackey.
that's who I talked to. And there are also, there will be Columbus. Most likely Columbus will have primaries. They have a ward system now for the first time, City of Columbus Council. So my understanding is there's most likely city races, though I don't know if we'll know definitively. I think we can know more, though, after we get through lame duck, we'll know about the state ballot and the timeline issue. And then City of Columbus, hopefully we can also know more. Yeah.
If I may, we may know more about the election, but as an ex officio member and speaking on behalf of the administration, the city has to be in a position to be able to move forward and implement something. And it may be simply implementing a plan that doesn't get really triggered yet, but I can say with certainty that no progress will be made between now and January 9th on that because of the holidays.
Yeah, I didn't infer that there was an expectation of that.
So I just want
I
to
think
make,
that-
like, if you're bringing it up for vote on January 9th, I don't think we'll be any further along in understanding.
I agree. I think the decision that is in place, or the consideration that's in place for whether this is in May or November is the simple topic. I don't think there's any action plan required on the part of the administration. This legislation simply enables that process to begin, and without it, there's a lot of unanswered questions, and that's why we're convening the committee, but this is only a first step from my perspective, so I have no expectations of such.
Yeah, my main concern would be the city bearing the entire brunt of the burden of the elections.
I don't know too much. I would agree with the January 9th. I would move it to at least the 23rd, if not the first meeting in February, just to make sure that you have the information that you need in order, yes.
The only issue, it would need to go to the Board of Election by February 1st is the deadline for the May primary.
And I would say mid-month in January. My question though is in the preamble, it says November 8th. Do we need to readjust that language?
So if it goes
We would.
into January, it'll get a new number, and we can do a new preamble without having a need for, multiple readings all over again.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would add is, when this was first introduced, I think there was a desire to get on this train as quickly as possible in order to experience some beneficial savings. I think the landscape has changed tremendously in this space. And I think a lot of communities are experiencing the opposite of savings, just as a result of market forces right now in terms of, the buying power. So the urgency that may have been there to at least get a plan going to move in the direction of the opt-out program may not be there, may not be as viable today as it was, a number of months ago.
Would it be true, sorry,
Yes.
would it be true though if, to Councilman Panzera's point, we would be enabled to move on something when the time was right? So whereas we didn't have the ability to do that when the conditions were right, passing what we would be proposing here would just put us in that position to be able to catch that right.
Absolutely, but, and the only thing I'll say without going into a whole lot of details, there are people who know a lot more about this than I do. It's a commodity market, and the purchases are made like a year in advance or some long period in advance. So even if we were able to jump into the market in May or in October, realistically, the pricing has already been set for the foreseeable future at that point.
And when we talked about it, I remember Matt Jordan being here, and I thought it wasn't so much the savings, but for the environmental impact. I thought it was more the draw for the consumers here that we were looking at it. Like, he said, well, possibly maybe you would save $1. It was very little, a very minimal amount that he suggested you might save, that it was more about helping the environment.
If I may, I think the concern is that you don't want to pay too much, though.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because the prices are too
Yeah.
high.
I agree, but it was just that it wasn't, only how it was phrased, how you phrased it, that we were doing it for savings, but I hadn't taken it with that impression. And I also was wondering, I don't know, Megan, if you know offhand, or anybody, how much did we pay for putting issue 32 on the ballot? I'm just curious, because I don't know how, there were many other things. Issue 32?
It's done, the county auditor actually withholds it from our real estate tax, so we probably won't know until March.
Okay, okay, thanks.
And keep in mind, that's not one where that was the only thing on the ballot.
No, I know, there are many things, right, I just wondered.
All right,
So, is there a mo-
we will need a motion, or unless, I mean, we could vote on it, but it sounds like we would like to table this. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I sort of constructed mine as I didn't say a motion, but, I guess I heard you say a different date, but I still think we should have a little bit of cushion. So I wanted to I do move to table to date certain of January 9th, 2023.
Second.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Edwards,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
Kozak,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-11 has been tabled until date certain of January 9th.
Thank you. Old business item number 2.
Item number 2 is ordinance 2022-23, an ordinance to accept the dedication of 0.003 acres of real property to create a sidewalk easement and declaring it an emergency.
Thank you, Councilmember Edwards. You're doing that? Or, yeah.
The planning administration met prior to this and also at the November 21st meeting. This has to do with the property at 1217 Grandview Avenue. The committee recommended approval to this body.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Motion and second, clerk, please call the roll.
Who was the second, please? Okay, thank you. Houston,
Yes.
Kozak,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-23 has been approved.
Thank you. Old business item number 3.
Ordinance 2022-24, an ordinance to grant a 0.772 plus acre easement on a portion of certain city-owned property to facilitate access across a newly constructed school parking lot and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Councilmember Edwards.
Planning administration met prior to this and also addressed it at November 21st. Has to do with the new middle high school parking lot. Cleaning up some of the things that have happened there. Committee did make recommendation for approval to this body.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thanks. Vote that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Clerk, please call the roll.
Houston,
Yes.
Kozak,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-24 has been approved.
Thank you. Old business item number 4.
Ordinance 2022-25, an ordinance to amend section 111.02 of the codified ordinances of the city of Grandview Heights, Ohio, to increase the salary of the city council members and the president of city council in accordance with section 3.5 of the charter of the city.
Thank you, Councilmember Panzera.
Thank you. I appreciate the floor. As we know, this was not assigned to committee so that we can have a full overview. It affects all of us and our future leadership. This is a second reading. I would like to engage a little further with the city attorney between now and our next meeting to understand the implications and possibilities of potentially assigning this in spirit to the Charter Review Committee, which convenes every 8 years, 10 years? And possibly formulating a framework by which they could advance a recommendation to council. In the meantime, I am supportive of the salary structure that is that's illustrated in the current packet, but I would like to consider another section that would essentially kind of depoliticize the great deal of this and set it up on a higher level of continuum with the safety net, let's call it, of council being able to reverse or modify those, if needed, be it for budgetary purposes or times of peril, et cetera, whatever that might require. So I'm open to council's, my colleagues' thoughts on that additional section and how that might be able to be handled in a different way in the future.
That's an interesting thing. Is that something that you think can happen between now and next week, when it will be a third reading?
Oh, referring it, I mean, we could reconvene the Charter Review Commission,
No,
but there's no
I
way we
wasn't-
would act.
No, not actually assigning it to them. He's proposing language that
Oh,
would
sure.
permanently assign
Yes.
it to them
Correct.
to review this as they review the charter.
Yeah, barring any
Okay.
future change in that
Yeah.
policy, yeah.
And
No.
a lot of communities have embedded it.
Yes, Councilmember Houston.
I'm just, this is clarifying, to make sure I'm on the same page with you, Mr. Pansera. So we're not, that you're still proposing for this to go through our approval,
That
right?
is correct.
The passage, but adding some additional language to the
Adding
effect.
some additional
Okay.
language that would reduce council's direct role in these, because
Sure.
this is something that unfortunately we just have to do every
Yeah.
so often.
Right.
And I think that it is definitely worth considering, I would phrase it that way, to discuss having it and having it assigned as part of the charter review, and then for them to bring, as they do now, recommendations to those charter changes in the same way that they have been for many decades. So,
Thank you.
I like that.
so second reading is sufficient from
We will record this as
sponsors'
a second reading.
perspective.
Any additions that you have, I would suggest sending out as soon as possible, given the short timeline of next week voting.
I don't think it will be too clumsy. I think there's a way we can drop it in here pretty easy.
All right, we look forward to seeing that. We will, again, record that as a second reading. Moving on, old business item number 5.
Ordinance 2022-26, an ordinance amending the salary of the mayor of the city of Grandview Heights in accordance with section 2.3 of the charter of the city.
These two are very related. I assume you would propose a similar addition to this one as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
They're directly related.
Yes. All right, we will record ordinance 2022-26 as a second reading. Moving on, old business item number 6.
Ordinance 2022-27, an ordinance amending the salary ordinance of the city of Grandview Heights and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Councilmember Edwards.
Planning and administration met prior to this. This had to do with adjusting compensation for a few positions and adding a planning and community development specialist role. The committee had a good discussion and made recommendation to this group of approval. So my second reading.
Thank you. We will record that as a second reading. Old business item number 7.
Ordinance 2022-28, an ordinance to approve supplemental appropriations for the city share of the Bobcat Way Fairview Avenue Transformation Project for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith, you're doing that?
Yeah, yes, finance met on this at 5 p.m. this evening. This is basically for the Fairview Avenue project. This is the matching funds for the OPWC grant. It is $165,000 to the street improvements and $170,000 to parks. And the committee unanimously approved, or recommends approval to council, as well as the administration would like to have this passed tonight, to suspend the rules in order to get the contracts executed sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
And committee approved that as well.
Okay, recommended approval on suspension, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any discussion on this legislation or suspension of rules? Is there a motion?
I'll move to suspend the rules.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Kozak.
Yes.
Panzera.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
Houston.
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yep.
The rules for ordinance 2022-28 have been suspended.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
That's a motion and a second by Councilmember Houston. Clerk, please call the roll.
Panzera.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
Houston.
Yes.
Kozak.
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-28 has been approved.
All right. Old business item number 8.
Ordinance 2022-29, an ordinance to make annual appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Grandview Heights, state of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith, your committee met.
Yes, Finance Committee met on this, the general operating budget at 6 this evening. Director Miller gave a presentation, as well as Police Chief, Fire Chief, Director Coker, gave presentations as well regarding new hires in the respective departments. We had an exhaustive discussion on this ordinance. We're going to continue to wrap things up on that next week in finance. No recommendations were made, and also the next meeting we're going to have a lengthy discussion on 2022-30, the capital budget.
Thank you. We will record that as a second reading. Old business number 9.
Ordinance 2022-30, an ordinance to make appropriations to various departments within the city of Grandview Heights municipal government to purchase equipment and make capital improvements in 2023.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith already spoke on that. We will record that as a second reading. Old business item number 10.
Ordinance 2022-31, an ordinance to establish the Goodell mixed-use TIF area, declaring the improvement of certain real property located in the city of Grandview Heights, Franklin County, Ohio, to be a public purpose, declaring such property to be exempt from real property taxation, designating specific public infrastructure improvements that, once made, will directly benefit the parcels for which improvement is declared to be a public purpose, requiring annual service payments in lieu of taxes, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund, authorizing compensation payments to the Grandview Heights City School District, and providing related authorizations pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Sections 5709.40B, 5709.42, 5709.43, 5709.832, and 5709.85.
Thank you. Councilmember Edwards.
Yes, the Economic Development Committee met prior to this. We talked about this piece of legislation and the two following ones. These have to do with establishing commercial TIF districts in 3 areas of town. The Goodell mixed use area, Southern Gateway, and the neighborhood business TIF district. We had a good conversation. We had a guest from Bricker Eckler who came in and shared some additional contacts with us. The committee recommended we move forward for approval on all of these.
Thank you. We will record that as a second reading.
item number 11.
Ordinance 2022-32, an ordinance establishing the Southern Gateway TIF area, declaring the improvement of certain real property located in the city of Grandview Heights, Franklin County, Ohio, to be a public purpose, declaring such property to be exempt from real property taxation, designating specific public infrastructure improvements that, once made, will directly benefit the parcels for which improvement is declared to be a public purpose, requiring annual service payments in lieu of taxes, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund, authorizing compensation payments to the Grandview Heights City School District, and providing related authorizations pursuant to Ohio Revised Code sections 5709.40B, 5709.42, 5709.43, 5709.832, and 5709.85.
Thank you. You spoke to this already. I believe this is the one that needs substitution, correct, Director Concord?
That's the next one, I think.
No, it is 32.
Oh, it is? Excuse me. I thought we were in 33. No?
Oh,
32.
we're on 32.
I got ahead of myself.
Okay, we'll get there. Might take a while, a whole paragraph on these things.
Move to substitute to the current version.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll on substitution.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Houston. Yes. Kozak,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-32 has been substituted to version 120522.
Thanks for catching that, whoever caught it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little more detail there.
Yes. And just for our audience out there, there was a parcel that was inadvertently missed, and this will make sure that it's included. We will record that as a second reading. Old business item number 12. What's the record for number of business items?
It's tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ordinance 2022-33, an ordinance establishing the neighborhood business TIF area, declaring the improvement of certain real property located in the city of Grandview Heights, Franklin County, Ohio, to be a public purpose, declaring such property to be exempt from real property taxation, designating specific public infrastructure improvements that, once made, will directly benefit the parcels for which improvement is declared to be a public purpose, requiring annual service payments in lieu of taxes, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund, authorizing compensation payments to the Grandview Heights City School District, and providing related authorizations pursuant to Ohio Revised Code section 5709.40B, 5709.42, 5709.43, 5709.832, and 5709.85.
Thank you. That was already spoken on. We will record that as a second reading.
Point of order.
Yes.
I might, so others can check this, but it was Williams Avenue that we talked about, right?
We're not to Williams yet.
Okay, I think it's the next one though, not the 32 that did need substituted.
There was a missing parcel on that one, which is what we substituted to, which is different than the Williams Avenue.
That's a
Oh,
different
okay.
topic.
Different topic.
But it's a substitution nonetheless.
We're getting there.
Okay,
We've not gotten there
okay.
yet.
Excuse me.
Yeah, we're getting there. All right. Anyways, we've already discussed 33. We will record that as a second reading. Moving on, old business item number 13.
Ordinance 2022-34, an ordinance to grant the city of Grandview Heights a sanitary sewer easement with respect to 0.168 acre of real property located along Bobcat Avenue within the Grandview Yard and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Council Member Edwards.
Planning and Administration met on this evening. This is the one that will require a substitution to include Williams Avenue in this description. Committee was supportive of this and recommends approval.
Amendment, just for clarification.
Yeah, and then that's the substitution.
Amendment.
So is that a motion to amend to add Williams Avenue?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second? All right, thank you, Councilmember Houston. Clerk, please call the roll on the amendments.
Edwards,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
Kozak,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes,
Ordinance 2022-34 has been amended.
thank you. Is there any discussion? No, we'll record that as a second reading. Moving on to old business item number 14.
Ordinance 2022-35, an ordinance to grant the city of Grandview Heights a sanitary sewer easement with respect to 0.110 acres of real property located along Bobcat Avenue within the Grandview Yard and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Councilmember Edwards. Anything to add to this one?
Nope, nothing to add. The P&A, Planning and Administration Committee met on this one, made a recommendation of approval to this body.
Thank you. We'll record that as a second reading. Moving on, old business item number 15.
Ordinance 2022-36, an ordinance to grant the city of Grandview Heights a sanitary sewer easement with respect to 0.031 acres of real property located along Bobcat Avenue within the Grandview Yard and declaring an emergency.
Thank you again, Councilmember Edwards. Anything?
Planning Administration met before this, made a recommendation of approval to this body.
Thank you. We'll record that as a second reading. Old business item number 16.
Ordinance 2022-37, an ordinance to grant 0.001 acre encroachment and a 0.007 acre encroachment to an easement originally granted to the city easement by NRI Equity Land Investments LLC owner to facilitate a private construction project to be known as the Devon Apartments within the development block 9 of the Grandview Yard and declaring it an emergency.
Thank you again, Councilmember Edwards.
Planning Administration met, the committee met prior to this and made recommendation of approval to this body.
Thank you. We'll record that as a second reading. Moving on, new business item number 1.
Ordinance 2022-38, an ordinance to approve transfers and make appropriations to continue contracts for design and owner's representative services to initiate pre-construction management services for the city's fire EMS, police and administrative services facilities, and the Parks and Recreation facility at McKinney Street.
Thank you. Administration with Mayor Kearns, Director Felker, anyone want to talk on this?
I can talk about it.
Okay.
Earlier in the fall, before issue 32 passed, we started doing some work with Hill and Associates as an owner's rep, Birdie McHenry as an architect, and Myers and Associates as an architect. We told all of them in these contracts, if issue 32 does not pass, we're not going to complete the full contract. These are the remaining balances of those contracts since issue 32 did pass that will allow us to just complete that work. This is for it's going to have 3 readings. It'll be approved in 2023. We just didn't know if issue 32 was going to pass when we did the original capital plan, so we're doing this separately. And then you'll also see that we're transferring $6 million from the general fund to the general improvement fund. And in all of our presentations, we discussed that, the city would be paying $6 to $10 million. This is the initial $6 million. We may need to transfer more later, but this will get us started.
Okay. Well, we will record that as first reading, and I will start with finance. Other business, we have none. Comments from council members, are there any comments?
I have one.
Councilmember
No, go
Hill?
ahead. It's okay.
I was just wondering, this came up because of a person who wrote in, you said that somebody had sent a question for the council, but Sean Dorsey. But I wasn't aware until I was reading through Chief Starnes' report that he said he met with people from Nationwide and security. And I asked in an email today, so that there's security over there that Nationwide has. I just wasn't aware of this, and I just wondered what that looks like, and it's security for those parking garages, or
It's for the development.
patrolling?
They own a lot of property, they own, apartment buildings with large numbers of inhabitants. and they have private security, and we partner with them regularly.
Yeah, you can see them walking around sometimes, they're in blue t-shirts usually,
Oh.
and black pants.
Okay, I just wasn't sure what that looked like, if they're in cruisers or unmarked cars, or they're driving around. I didn't know if they were walking around, and
I've always seen them either walking or they have a car that says Nationwide on the
Yeah.
side. I think occasionally I've seen them on bikes, so.
Nationwide on your side.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's been a long night. Yes, we've worked with them on all kinds of issues through the years.
do they, because I know in a lot of his reports, Chief Starnes has talked about problems with that gym, like people being followed into the gym and stuff stolen from their lockers, or they see people leaving their cars, so then they break into the cars. Are the Nationwide people there monitoring those parking garages? I'm just wondering, I don't know.
In general, yes.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, they're not, yeah, I
Okay.
mean, they're longer in full development.
There's security cameras on all, I think all the buildings, on the corners of the buildings.
Okay.
There's cameras on the garages, or at least they're looking in and so on.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Sure. Councilmember Panzera, you had something?
Nothing of critical concern. I was going to offer congratulations to Council President. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your trip. And I think we actually had I think we beat you by one agenda item while you were gone. So technically, this might be the
Do I
second
need to bring you a
one.
little crown?
No.
I had the biggest agenda.
No, you just missed all of it.
Good.
Yeah, I was having fun.
Pretty good for an hour and 23
Well, they're all
minutes.
second readings.
Yeah, right. Are there any other, and round of applause for Leilani reading all
Yeah.
this stuff.
We did that while you were gone.
Right, and putting the whole packet together, I mean,
Well, on
so,
vacation.
yeah, that's, anyways. Are there any other comments from council members? No, okay, I'd just like to thank, everyone, especially Councilmember Kinzer for, stepping in for me and Councilmember Smith when we were, gone. You know, so very exciting. Everything looks different now. Anyway, this is great, and unless there's anything else, yeah.
Holiday party, Monday noon, or I think it's 11 to 1. I sent you guys an email, but just a reminder.
Is that down here?
No, service center.
Service center, that's right, I have that. Okay, thank you.
And I've tried it, I wouldn't walk there.
Yeah.
That's right, you ran.
Yeah, it's like a on ramp, go around the curve.
It's a knot, is all it's like.
It's a herrick.
Yeah, it's a little scary. Walk,
It's a hair.
there's no sidewalk. Okay, well, with that, we will adjourn at 8:25.
The traffic, yeah.
This all sounds very.
What's that?
Sorry.
Running here.
Assigned that.
That's